let's let these people who live and breathe this stuff every single day just kind of talk about what's on their minds and how they would like to deal with it. And the hope here is that if you're one of their counterparts, and I'll introduce you in a moment, that you're going to take some solace in knowing you're not alone in these things. And if you're one of the vendors, you can understand firsthand some of the pain points that you need to solve for. So let me make a couple of introductions. I'll make them poorly, but I'll ask you to kind of enrich them. How about that?
Perfect.
Phil Crawford from CKE Restaurants, Chief Technology Officer.
Thanks. Wow.
Tough crowd. We're not calling on you anymore.
We're security when you need
Right,
it.
yeah. Liz Bassone from Grubhub and Jeff Walls from Freedom Pay. And maybe if you wouldn't mind, just kind of elaborate on your roles there. Phil, if you want.
Yeah, so CKE, we own and operate Carl's Jr. and Hardee's across the nation as well as worldwide. We have unfortunate franchisees here that want to pick on me as well, which is going to be fun. Amazing brands, amazing legacy and history, obviously West Coast and East Coast. And the best part about what we're doing is we're kind of reevaluating where we stand digitally as an organization and making the proper changes to move us forward to become a relevant brand once again.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Liz?
Yep, Liz Bassone, Vice President Restaurant Success at Grubhub. Been at Grubhub a little over 6 years. Started in the enterprise specific space, so kind of created our enterprise accounts team there. I'm now in charge of all of our restaurant success teams, so have about 300 people that are in my specific portion of the organization, managing anything from mom and pop one location up through the CKEs, the Subways, the McDonald's, et cetera.
And one little interesting side note, when you started at, if I get my number right, about 6 years ago, there were 2 of you in that department, before there was even really an industry.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, things have changed so dramatically. I think I had one person reporting to me at that time who, managed like 10 accounts that were dipping their toe in the delivery water, just wondering if consumers would actually want their food delivered. And, here we are. Things have changed pretty dramatically since then.
Jeff?
Thank you, Mike. Jeff Walls with Freedom Pay. I've been there just about 6 years. And most of you know us as a secure commerce platform, providing secure payments across the industry. But really, it's evolved just like a lot of the technologies that we see out there today into an integrated commerce suite. How do we tie in transactions from all aspects of our business kind of in a unified data set to make the most of the information and make it actionable to your customers?
Thank you. So I just want to throw this out there in a semi-unstructured way. The theme of this, obviously, is what keeps CIOs up at night. If you're not officially a CIO by title, you interact with them, and people like their counterparts. So, Phil, let me just point to you first.
Sure.
You are one.
I am one.
What keeps you up at night in this world? What are the things that you're trying to solve for? What are the pain points that you're dealing with day in, day out?
I mean, we can all talk about the security cyber stuff we deal with day in, day out. We keep seeing these, octopus attacks and these different SMS phishings. I'm blessed that I have an amazing team, a couple of them are here today, that really kind of make my job a lot easier. But overall, what it keeps us is what do we need to do to continue to make ourselves relevant and moving forward? So I have to keep thinking 3 or 4 steps ahead. To me, that's the name of the game. It's not so much of the systems we have in place, it's where do we migrate those systems to, the foundational work that gets us one step closer to really understanding our guests and getting to our understanding of the guests and the personalization of the guests we need to get to, especially in our business that's extremely competitive in QSR. I mean, we all stay up late at night, we all work crazy hours. I would say 5 years ago, it was payments and PCI. Right, the 3-letter word none of us want to talk about.
Right.
But those days are gone. Now it's really going to be about infrastructure and security and the different things. But again, though, my life is about easier because of the team I have. So my number one thing that probably keeps me up at night is making sure my team is taken care of in a variety of different aspects.
Well, let me pull out one thing you said there,
Sure.
and I would love to hear everyone's thoughts on this. One of your biggest challenges is to be future looking. Mm-hmm. And that's not difficult. Being a futurist is a bum job. It's hard to get that right. So is there a methodology? Is there something you guys look towards to kind of, North Star yourselves on the map?
Yeah, I can tell you for us, not every solution fits your brand. You have to find the solution that meets your brand and obviously exceeds the customer experience, but fits into what you do. Like we're playing stuff with AI in our drive-thrus. We're playing with machine learning in our back end. We're playing with the snowflakes. we're not doing drones. Like, it just isn't our business sense.
Right.
There's certain things that need to mix together, and it's to keep it simple. I think some of the companies and some CIOs and CTOs really kind of go for this North Star, I want to do everything, but you can't do it. There just isn't enough time,
Right.
and go to your core competencies.
Liz, how about at Grubhub? How do you guys how do you do the future? Let me put it that way.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, again, the third-party industry has evolved so much. Where we are a bit different from our competitors, I would say we're not looking to deliver like your Apple Watch to you. We're not looking, we're trying to still really stay focused on the food aspect, as opposed to delivering, for retail and a number of other things as well. So I think when we're looking to the future, it's like, how can we continue to think of kind of groundbreaking, leadership in the space, but still be very focused on food? Like, we don't want to continue to move on from that, other than maybe like convenience and those types of things. But we still really want to be focused on restaurants. So how can we be super forward thinking in that restaurant space, as opposed to just spreading ourselves across all these other avenues,
Right.
which is not really what we want to do.
Right. You mentioned something in a conversation earlier that you rolled out, and I don't remember the date for this, Grubhub Direct, which seems like such a simple, obvious idea, but yet that really wasn't part of the roadmap early on. It didn't sound like it was somebody had to have that light bulb moment.
Yeah, Grubhub Direct is essentially an online ordering platform for restaurants to take advantage of, and it's commission-free. So, something that we hear often from CIOs and others are, how can I have a commission-free ordering opportunity? Obviously understand that there are diners who specifically want to go to third-party platforms to place orders. They like the variety, they want to perform searches, but then there are obviously other diners that are very loyal to their specific restaurant brands that they like to frequent. And how are you allowing them to order from you directly in a way that, again, you're not having to pay commissions to these third-party platforms? And so during the pandemic, when we really tried to bring it back to basics, how are we helping our restaurants? That was something that we rolled out with anything from a single operator, again, and we have some enterprise clients as well. So, that's been something that was a direct question from our restaurants. How can you support me to reach my diners in a way that is outside of the third-party space?
Jeff, you interact with folks like this, and these folks in particular, all week long, and you're in their heads, so to speak.
Sure.
You hear what they're dealing with, and you have a big voice at FreedomPay as to how we try and solve that. So what's your perspective on futurizing what we do?
I think the interesting thing about futurizing what we do, it's really on display here at FSTEC. You see all the applications and the partners that are out there presenting new technologies out there, which are really the future. What are we adopting to get to the next layer? And it's all the cool stuff that you want to get accomplished as an operator. But I think the challenge is, as I move forward with new technologies, where does that leave me with my data set? Now I'm piecing together my technology infrastructure with various partners, and there's data out there that now I need to think about tying into my present plan and taking that forward. So I think you have to have a unifying, underlaying application of what you do with that data, regardless of where that technology, regardless of what technology you're adopting in the future. So it's important to have that foundation that Phil talked about, that solid foundation, so you can plug in new technologies without disrupting your whole data plan, which impacts your customer experience, your AI, and all the information that you're trying to put back into the organization.
Okay, Liz, what keeps you up at night?
I'm not a CIO. My 8-year-old and my 4-year-old. No, I think for me, it is, again, we were definitely the leader in the space for some time when I first started at the company. And I think, we have an opportunity, I think, to be more creative. I don't want us to constantly be trying to play catch up. So it's how can we innovate, be first to market? How can we, continue to kind of test the boundaries on our product and tech side? That's really what keeps me up at night. It's a very competitive space that we're in right now, and how can we find those differentiators as a company that excite restaurant operators and want them to continue to work with us?
So how do you institutionalize innovation there? Because you're no longer a 20-person company. You've got to kind of embed that into the culture there. How does that work there at Grubhub?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I now report directly into the COO, who is very much empowering like our restaurant network leadership team, which I am on, that we own the products, right? And I'll be honest, with prior leadership, I didn't necessarily always feel that way. So it's really empowering to know that really I would work directly with our VP of product and set that product roadmap, depending on what we are hearing in the field from restaurants, what they're looking for. That really I'm able to make those calls with my colleagues that are also directly connecting with restaurants on a regular basis. I would say, something that also we came to our product team during the pandemic as we were hearing staffing concerns with our self-delivery restaurants. I mean, we definitely knew it was hard to find delivery drivers for a long time. And for our self-delivery restaurant partners, they were coming to us, possibly having to take themselves offline, move themselves to pickup only because they did not have the driver staff that they had prior. And so we, number one, can most certainly provide drivers for them. We have a self-delivery model as well as what we call GHD, which is, we have drivers that will come pick up all your orders and deliver them, and we set the delivery boundaries so we can hit as much of the population in each area as possible. But we also came out with a new product, we call it Bagel, very classy name, but essentially the inner portion of the bagel is what the restaurant feels they can facilitate as far as the coverage with their own driver set. The outer portion of the bagel is our team. So again, we would then select a specific boundary where we are hopefully reaching many more guests as opposed to what the restaurant could reach with their own drivers. And we then facilitate the driver picking up the order for that outer area of territory. So again, something that was really brought to us by restaurants. Hey, we're really struggling with this staffing. Can we use some of your drivers sometimes, but not all the time, because we still want to employ our drivers. So another time that we kind of rose to the occasion for what the restaurants were looking for.
So I'm really interested in how, is there a mechanism, or what are the mechanisms that you have in place to hear? What are your listening mechanisms? I mean, how do you do that systematically, hear from your customers, and then try and turn that into actionable, buildable solutions? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
Sure. Want to go?
Yeah, I can go very fast.
Okay.
We have set up a specific process. We call it our roundtable, our restaurant roundtable. So we actually have two of these. One is a leadership council, one is a roundtable. The leadership council, we actually work with the same restaurants for a full calendar year. We meet quarterly. We actually pay them for this, and we get their opinions on new products, new opportunities. They may be our first to test things, we are constantly getting their opinion. They're usually very high volume restaurants. What can we be doing better? What's your feedback on our invoice? And all these types of things that we're looking to improve upon. And then we also have a roundtable where we bring in an enterprise or mid-market brand once every 4 to 6 weeks, where we again really focus the conversation on, again, their specific feedback. So whether it's, hey, I'm trying to find new marketing opportunities on your site. I want to be higher in search. What can I do? Or if they want to talk about maybe delivery driver issues or different ways to showcase their menu on our platform. We really kind of tailor the specific agenda on that specific group and either what they're best in class for or what they kind of have complained about and things we can learn from and possibly make some changes.
Yeah,
Phil?
I think for us it's about collaboration and cooperation, right? I think there's often in a franchise organization, there's a lot of strain between us and them. I think what we've done well in IT and other departments have done well is really have that collaboration. So we have a STAR IT committee, and that is our largest franchisees, but also some of the smaller franchisees as well. And we collaborate on different ideas or thoughts or things that they see in their ecosystem that we should bring to the larger ecosystem. Additionally, what we do is we also survey my own leadership team and our peers inside our IT organization. It's very entrepreneurship. And that really is kind of becoming groundbreaking what we're trying to do because we don't know it all. And I think that having the humility and being humble enough to say, I don't know if that's the right decision or your decision might be better. Let's go down that path and see where it takes us. Really is kind of doing a lot more unlock than we ever would have thought. And it's actually getting us products quicker to market, both internal customers and external customers through that collaboration. I think in our world, there's been years of strain where it never actually happened. And I think opening the box, per se, and allow people to contribute to the box just shows that we're in this together.
Yeah.
Without the togetherness, you're kind of screwed.
Right.
And that togetherness has actually helped us catapult a bunch of these initiatives we had to the forefront, but more importantly, quicker and more effective, and they actually are rolling out and working correctly.
So you and I were talking a little bit earlier. You have a series of, I'm just calling them partner events, but there's a better name for them.
Conventions.
Conventions, there you go.
Or heckling events.
Heckling events. Throughout the year, throughout the country.
We do.
So that's one mechanism for that feedback. What else happens there at CKE to get that feedback?
So we have a monthly Star IT committee I alluded to. We also have different feedback through our teams. I do a monthly IT stand-up call with my entire team. I think those different mechanics, especially the conventions, we kind of have fun with it, right? Like, I'm your most atypical IT guy, right? I'm not hoodie, tattoos, like whatever, it works. But what's cool about us is that when we go to these shows, we're gonna have fun with it. So we have a booth, and this year we're doing a fireside chat, right? It's just a little cheesy fire with little s'mores. It makes it inviting, and a lot of folks come to and say, hey, you're a technologist, I'm an operator, I don't understand your world, and vice versa. So it really is breaking down that barrier of lack of communication, and doing those micro events, even though the macro events at those shows, really allows folks to make it approachable. I think oftentimes we're the big bad gorilla in the corner of a 35,000 square foot building saying, you must do this, no input. Like, we've said, no, we're not. We're your partners in this. And those, again, those micro event and those macro events and the open kinds of communication, whether it be serious or fun, it's the balance that works for us.
Interesting. Jeff, I want to know what keeps you up at night, but maybe more professionally, what do you hear that keeps your clients and your circle, your universe up at night?
I think it's really deciding what the pace of technology adoption is going to be in their environment. Right? There's typically a couple of choices with operators. You know, there's that unified solution that promises to deliver everything that's required in your environment, and then there's piecing it together with best of breed. And those are kind of two diverse approaches to solving what the technology riddle is. The challenge with the unified solution that's going to deliver everything to you is it's the 80-20 rule, or sometimes the 20-80 rule. It's solving 20% of your needs and the other 80% is livable for your environment, but it's not necessarily taking you where you want to go, but it's providing stability in your environment. Now, the best of breed approach, what we see on display here at FSTEC, is a little more exciting and a little more challenging from the CIOs that I'm talking to. So they're plugging in what they feel is best for their industry, but they're also owning the challenge of making all those technologies work together. And as you know, FreedomPay is an agnostic provider of gateway services who's really known in the industry for allowing our operators to piece together those diverse technologies, right? To take that data set that's being created from an online experience, an in-store experience, various ways that you're interacting with your customers and tying that together. So those are the real challenges when I talk to CIOs, is making that decision to say, I'm taking the safe, the hit the easy button route in the unified technology platform, or I'm taking on the cowboy role and I'm going to piece all this together, and how can you help me do that? Those are the things that keep us up at night in presenting them a platform that allows them to sort of unify the diverse experience as well as adopt new technologies in their ecosystem.
I'm guessing that those are fairly universal problems, issues that most people in this room face and deal with in one form or another. And I'd kind of like to just unpack that a bit. There's the idea of, and this is not meant to be disparaging in any way, but there's an idea of big legacy technologies that basically powered your whole estate to an extent. And and then there's the opposite of the scale where it's headless, it is composable, it is build your own stack. And as people that have to kind of sell into that, understand that, and actually build that, let's talk about some of that tension, those what ifs that you have to deal with. Is it an 80-20 in your world? That's not much of a question. It's more of like here's a set of stuff you have to deal with. What do you think about that?
Look, I think from our world, it's about the integration layer, right? I'm a big best of breed approach. I've built entire enterprise stacks for some amazing companies in my life, all homegrown, and there was a completely one unified platform. The way we're going nowadays really needs to be a data-centric mindset first. And how do I move data among systems? And the only way to do it is through API integration layers or ready to move systems that are interchangeable. Because my partnership today may be great for 2 years, but in 2 years, I might pivot left, and you may not be that solution. They'll be able to interchange you in and out. Not, sounds terrible, sorry. But
That was awful.
I'm sorry. But look, I have to look at the larger macro environment for how we're moving as a business. Because my business, QSR, might inevitably shift in 2 more years.
Right.
And if I can't interchange parts, I got a problem. I can't build for obsolescence. I think a lot of times people build these things like it'll last for 15 years. In our world, things are changing so rapidly, you need to have parts go in and out. And building the tech stacks that can do that with the right providers, more importantly, they can go with you on that journey. I'm a big believer in collaboration. So my providers that are very well documented who they are, they know what we're doing in a roadmap. So they know if we're going down this path, we're going to build with you on that path. Not, hey, we're going far right, you go far left, and you basically fall apart.
Right. So your common stream, your big thread through this is data.
It's all about data. So we've spent ghouls of amount of money on our data infrastructure. The team has done an amazing job of getting off old legacy stacks, we'll call it, and really get into modern technologies. And we're just now unpacking data. And you think a company our size would be able to move data this quick? Like, it took us such a long time to get there.
I'm sure.
But now that we're there, we're seeing the power of it. And so with our other partners, being able to inject, and we're building dashboards, we're building these new reporting structures and so forth, that give us actionable real-time information, helps us run the business more effectively.
Sure.
Now, we're at the infancy. Like, you think we're 80 years old, like we'd have this stuff figured out. No, we're old but new at the same time.
Well, the ideas that are kind of underpinning that thought process are actually fairly new. Call them the past 5-6 years when people really started thinking, hey, wait a second, this isn't just about a quantity, but there are insights here that can really drive the future of what we do.
Yeah, there's, artificial intelligence, machine learning, there's these, Rob talked about it a second ago about next 50 years where the compute cycles are going to be astronomically better. If we can build a machine or a model that can predict how the business is going to do, predict the guest experience, predict, a technology stack, whatever it might be, they'll win the day.
Yeah.
And so that's what we have to get to overall.
Liz, your thoughts on this, because you have to deal with it in your own way.
Yeah, I think what we hear often from restaurants is, the point of sale experience, right? So, look back to 6 years ago when I started, restaurants were accepting orders on tablets, right? So you would have like 6 tablets at your front register and you're accepting an order and then having to put it in your own point of sale. So, I would say enterprise brands were generally first to the integration party. We were very focused as an organization on direct to point of sale integration. So we sort of started that journey with very much preferring a direct integration into your Micros or your Aloha or whatever. But again, the industry has really changed in terms of a lot of these middleware companies, Olo, It's a Checkmate, et cetera. And we needed to adapt to that and be comfortable having a kind of third party enter that integration relationship, which again made us a little uncomfortable at first, but that is how the industry has gone. So many of these restaurant brands that we work with are constantly, like, there's just more consolidation in the space. We're seeing every day that people are acquiring other brands or selling off brands, et cetera. And if we're not able to quickly pivot and allow that integration opportunity, then we just won't have those concepts online. No one is going to deal with a tablet in a QSR. So how can we adapt quickly? We have a specific team we have staffed on the business development side to meet with these different tech partners. And are we a viable option for integration? How can we set that up? What's the timing? So that, again, for us, it's all about unlocking the restaurant supply. We want to work with everyone that makes sense for our business and hopefully be driving them orders in a way that they want to accept them. So, for us, it's constant, new point of sale players, new middleware players. How are we adapting to that quickly and allowing our restaurants to accept orders in the way they prefer. And just when you think you have it figured out, CKE could come to us and be like, we're moving to a different one, right? So, just because we integrate with their point of sale currently doesn't mean in a couple of years that that's who they will still be using.
It's true.
It's that mercenary.
Well, it is. The way I look at the future is no disrespect to point of sale system companies, it's really understanding what's happening in the kitchen. The kitchen is the nucleus of our business. If I can understand how cook times are happening or how orders are being ingested and give an accurate information back to the consumer and really narrow that gap for operational efficiencies, if I can have my Grubhub delivery provider get that down so they're gone in under 60 seconds, product's good, experience is good, operations is good, that's where you need to narrow it. The days of just injecting it, saying I'm finished, it sits in a POS, we're money, is I've always said our industry is so far behind, it's terrible. Compared to retail and other industries, we're way far behind. I think if we get to that next step, we'll start this larger unlock.
Interesting.
100%.
And I think an innovation that I keep thinking of, so prior to working for Grubhub, I worked for OpenTable. And so, I would go into these more like white tablecloth restaurants and try to understand what are your turn times, what can your kitchen handle, and then we would sort of set up their books like that, right? So if you then tonight wanted to eat at Perry's, which I ate at last night, it was amazing, and you want to eat at 7, perhaps 7 is not available, but you can get in at 8 o'clock because Perry's has told us their turn times are X for a 2-top and et cetera, right? So I would love to get there with restaurants where if we're looking at your point of sale much more holistically, like what is actually flowing through your point of sale right now? What is your capacity? What can you handle? Then we could actually advise the delivery diner, hey, you can't order right now, but you could order this for delivery in 45 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, and back to your OpenTable example, if you knew I'm coming in, it's the old Vegas days, right? You knew your bartender, you want your Kettle One martini up. If you knew you were coming in, they can anticipate it and you're VIP and you get bumped up, you now create the larger loyalty brand across the board.
Absolutely.
We should talk.
Yeah,
Yeah, you guys should talk.
We already do. I'm very grateful, by the way, of all the work you guys did to get on that middleware because we've seen phenomenal results, not to tout you guys, with what you guys have done delivery-wise.
No, thank you. It was, we were a little late to that game. I was fighting for it, trust me.
I know you were.
We were very, very focused on direct to point of sale and not introducing a third party, but I think that was, 5 years ago.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
So in the few remaining minutes, I'm not actually sure when we have to end, but I think it's fairly quickly.
I don't know.
Nobody seems to know. It's okay. We'll just go until they say
It's
no.
an
They
intimate
turn the
room.
lights off. I'm going to blue sky it with you a little bit. Okay. The solution or solutions that would make your lives easier as a provider, as a merchant, look out there 2 years and go, man, if I only had the...
If we had one consistent data stream that everybody wrote to the same specs, 100%. Right? There we go.
That got laughs.
I mean, it's no joke because we have to write all these different things to different APIs and different SDKs. If we had one core standard in our industry, I know, you talk about blue sky, that's like blue sky plus yellow sky plus every other sky.
Okay.
But that's what would be an amazing task for if all to agree. 800-pound gorillas for the micros, down to the new players on the street that are just coming out of the ground from the POS to back-end architecture systems, everything would be amazing. It'd make my life a lot easier. It'd also make my Informatica layer much happier too.
Right? Okay. I hope technology providers are taking notes right now.
If you write it, you're going to make a killing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think for us, it's continuing to innovate actually on the data front. I view data at Grubhub as a product, and that's what I continue to tell my product team. This is a product that we need to offer restaurants, again, anything from the individual operator or the franchisee all the way up through that corporate layer, different options of how to ingest data. So we have a data feed that sends out nightly, automatically to restaurants that want their data that way, right? And it's anything from transactions, any sort of refunds, et cetera. Every night they get a feed. And then we also have our Grubhub for Restaurants platform, which is more tailored, I would say, to the individual operator. And we're going through a mass overhaul of an insights program where I'm working with our product team to select the specific reports and dashboards that these restaurants are asking for. So, and then by the time we do all of that, I'm sure there will be new reports and new asks, and it's just staying on top of that. Because again, I think the industry has changed so much in terms of, I think restaurants can sometimes view the third party as a necessary evil, but I want to provide you the data to run your restaurant more efficiently and understand who your guests are and how can we continue to, again, innovate and work with new tech partners and whatnot to basically provide you what you want in a number of different areas to receive it.
You're not evil. You're a good symbiotic relationship to the restaurant industry.
But, I understand that, things have changed. In the 6 years I've been there, again, I think restaurants at the beginning were just like, hey, let's try this delivery thing. Now it's, I want to know everything about it. How long are drivers in restaurants? How can we turn that around quicker? Is there a way to fire the food when the driver is walking in the door, depending on what your prep times are? Like, this is all data that we should be sharing with restaurants and encouraging you to, run your operations in a certain way for delivery versus your other ways of getting food in hands of your diners.
Jeff, you have a perspective here that you get to talk to a lot of people in this space, so I'm really interested in what you have.
I do have a perspective on it, and Liz and Phil are both talking about how important that data is, and Phil's talking about normalizing APIs against all providers to make his job easier for gathering and making that data actionable. At FreedomPay, we take a little bit of a different approach, understanding that there's so many technology players out there that blue sky is to normalize that API availability across all of those applications. FreedomPay takes a little bit of a different approach. And we want to normalize that data experience as the transaction is taking place, right? We want to gather all of the same data points regardless of where that transaction is coming from. It could come online, it could be from a kiosk, it could be from point of sale, but be able to normalize that data across the multiple applications that you've adopted in your environment, and then use that data set, which is not only product oriented, but also customer specific. Identify that customer within the data set so I can turn metrics back to my operators, I can turn metrics back to my marketing team, and make sure that they have a full and complete data set, but normalizing that process instead of struggling with that process through multiple vendors in a best of breed approach. FreedomPay supports hundreds of integrations to these providers, many of them out here in the FSTEC showroom today, and that's really the approach that we're taking to try and make life easier for my counterparts here on the panel.
Thanks. Thank you. I was just going to ask for questions.
Kevin Bentley from New England Authentic Eats, the VP of Tech. I have a question. It's kind of twofold, one for Phil and one for Liz, but I think they'll be able to answer it together. Liz, you talked about the bagel model, and one of the reasons restaurants set their delivery radius is for food quality, and we don't typically like to go outside of that radius. So how do you handle the food quality piece on the outer portion of the bagel? The second question is for Phil, which is, over the conference, I've heard a lot about the guest experience, the guest journey, and the ROI. One of the things that I think is lost in the communication or in focus is the operators themselves, and what kind of technology things are you doing to focus specifically on the operators that will impact that down the line guest experience and ROI?
You want to start with your bagel?
Sure, bagel first. So it's a great question. We still obviously are very focused on food quality. If the delivery takes too long, the diner then calls and says, hey, my hamburger was cold, like, guess who's having to pay for that hamburger? It's us, right? So we do want to still continue to focus on food quality. We do work with some enterprise brands that hold us to pretty tight windows, even if they're using us for like the Grubhub delivery full delivery suite, where they would say, I would only want a drive time of 10 minutes. And then it is on us to obviously figure out with all of their locations, what is that drive time of 10 minutes sort of around the location. I would say in general, we would never want to be more than 15 minutes. So, it is something that's very important to us. We're not going to be driving your food, 45 minutes away. I will say there are some different stipulations there. Like we have a catering platform where then perhaps there might be some items that are more cold foods, sandwiches, et cetera, that we could stretch those boundaries a bit depending on the brand and how they're food can travel, especially for, Merrill Lynch that wants 500 sandwiches or something like that. But in general, we're very focused on the food quality as well. We want to ensure that the diner is receiving, a product that is up to your standards and obviously up to ours as well.
And so on the operational side, when we started our digital journey, we didn't have a digital team at all. We had nobody in these positions. So part of it was building the group and having an operation presence there. So we have operations in our IT committees. We have operation discussions all the time. But more importantly, we want our team, IT folks, to go into the operation building and try the solutions and understand and talk to the operators. Without that input, we're screwed. So we actually just did it. I think it was 2 weeks ago. We toured our competition and ourselves and listened to our operators. And getting the feedback from them helps dictate the direction, because I first to raise my hand, I have made terrible mistakes by pushing product out, technology-wise, that's destroyed operations, right? And it was like, you own your mistakes, right? But not having listened to them, I've learned without their input, you're never going to get across the finish line. Because what I think is best in a model in a very controlled environment is completely the antithesis when it actually gets to the field. So getting them at the table and taking their feedback, but taking it to heart and reason is key. So when we do proof of concepts, when we do things rolling, they're in that conversation in the get-go. And we want their feedback, great or not great, either way. So they're part of the solution, period.
Great question. Anybody else? Questions for the panel? Yes, sir.
Where does the POS fit in all this? Are we overrating it? From what you say, I understand that we're overrating perhaps the POS solution.
I mean, I think POS is requirement, right, at this point. What I'm saying is that it needs to move back to the kitchen. The point of sale system as we know it is just a data entry point, right? I think the store of the future, which we've all been seeing the models, there is no POS. Everything literally is injected into and off of this in every way. You might have a cashier. I'm talking about mainly QSR. Fine dining is totally different, right, and so forth. The POS really is just that transport hub that eventually goes away and becomes part of the nucleus inside the kitchen that ties in supply chain, ties in operational management, ties in labor, ties in forecasting for schedule. Like everything you can think of lives there. So you can actually make decisions based on what's transpiring in your cook lines, because that is the single most bottleneck. Like I can put tons of cars through the drive-through and curbside and so forth, but if that kitchen can't operate effectively, you're toast. Not the POS company. I'm just saying. You're in trouble. And so I think that in our purview, the POS system is a necessity right now, but in the future it may not be there, right? And you just have no idea. If I were to do a cast out 5 years from now, I think it literally all goes back in the kitchen. I think it all goes away.
Thank you. Yes.
Follow up to that question.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the POS system capturing data points and understanding what's going on in the kitchen, how do you think about balancing capturing signals in such a busy space while making sure that you're not adding friction to such operationally heavy, organized, chaotic environment?
It's great. It goes back to the data metrics by point. Like you look at bump bar system, you can figure out when bumps are going in, when orders are injected in different parts of the KDS. You start leveraging some of the artificial intelligence that's actually capturing food and flows. You've all seen the founder of the movie McDonald's, right, where they kind of move and how many steps it is. That becomes such a science inside your four walls by looking at some of the advancement technologies. That's where it goes to. You talk about different measure points and different data. There's thousands of data points in a restaurant we don't even measure right now. Like we're IoT. We don't measure nearly enough there to get a concrete understanding of what happens inside the four walls. We look at very narrow data points and make a decision. And often those decisions are inaccurate because there's other variables that we haven't brought into the overall data set. So part of what we're doing, and the guy in front of you with the beard is in charge of it, really is to start bringing in all these different data sets to build a larger scale model. So we can understand what, but more importantly, run something against it to see if we do this, then we get that. Kind of a scenario, which is kind of next generation for QSRs and business leaders and technology, but that's where we have to go because Amazon's doing it with their Go's. Starbucks is doing it with some of their stuff in New York. Like it's here, and we better get ready for it because that's what our consumers are going to expect if we're going to meet them on their needs. Yep.
Any other questions? Well, thank you all. I appreciate your attendance. Thank you to you all for your insights.
Thank you.
Phil.
Thank you.
Of course.
You're awesome.
Nice. Way to go.